I just felt so much love and gratitude in my body. It was very strange. Like, when you first learn to meditate, it happens to some people. You just are like, you feel like you're on drugs, like you're high or something.
Yep.
Welcome to the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacy Phillips. As a leading manifestation advisor with a process that's, radically different from the old New Age model, mine is rooted in psychology, neuroscience, and my energetic gifts. I created this podcast to help you expand your subconscious limiting beliefs about the potential of deserving the manifestations you're calling in. Therefore, you're tuning into this podcast series to show your subconscious that anything you desire is possible. And by pressing play, you've already started the process of manifesting it. Happy November, everybody. I love this time of year. I do have to say, I love it less and less in Los Angeles. And in fact, I do get depressed, very depressed during this time of year when I have to be in LA because it's very much the Indian summer. So it's so dry. Obviously, recently it's been so smoky because of all of the fires. It's fire season. And I'm used to fire seasons. I grew up in a national park, so we have one every year since I was born. I'm actually weirdly calm, cool, and collected, knowing that both of my houses will burn down one day and designing them with that in mind and having insurance policies with that in mind. But I cannot, my constitution hates the dryness, and when I say dryness, I mean, yes, my skin's drier, the air's drier, but I think what I hate most of all is how dry the land is. It's depressing to me with so much sun, and it's still usually warm this time of year. So I really find myself pining for other areas. In fact, this whole time I've been in LA, I'm just like pining to get back to the Forest Retreat House, which was, I had the best week there in October. The last day I went on a nature walk to celebrate the thinning of the veil and picked up some wonderful nature treasures and did an altar in my room and lit candles for ancestors. And it's just so special up there. And I don't know about you all, but I'm a huge holiday person. Holidays were always very, very happy in my family. And of course, some people aren't that fortunate, but it's when we became a lot less dysfunctional. And I love them. And I find myself this time of year, literally starting in September, just wanting to check out and be so cozy and, watching the holiday things and engaging. I do much more of the pagan style celebrations, coming together with loved ones. So I will be back up there, the Forest House, in November for a week and December for a week, which I'm so excited about. And in fact, those times of year are actually very special up there. I find every season so special, but so Yosemite has an ice skating rink, which is beautiful. And the Ahwahnee has one of the most beautiful fireplaces on the planet. Google it. So we often go up there. And also Bridesvale, the waterfall is like something out of Game of Thrones, especially when it's snowed. So it's like this waterfall's crashing down on you. There's snow all around on the nature. And then you just have this mist coming off and you're in all of your winter gear. So I actually love this time of year up there. If anybody's even remotely considering coming up, don't hesitate. The thing to know, though, is that if you're going to be staying at the house, which the link is below, make sure that you rent four-wheel drive or have four-wheel drive when you come up, which is a big key. It's not like it's crazy. We definitely are one of the first streets that get plowed. Always park on the street rather than in the driveway. And then you're fine and cool. And we have a beautiful fireplace. And we actually put in a generator. So if any power goes out, it automatically kicks on. So it's actually a really, really stunning place with all of the windows to experience snow and coziness. And Like I talked about before, I've just been drinking a ton of reishi, the Four Sigmatic reishi, and their lion's mane in this coziness. I haven't made a tonic yet. I've actually just been craving straight up this time of year, the coziness. For the calmness is when I'll do the reishi, is just the soothing, warm calmness. I'm still like super heavy on my Karen Hurd protocol. So I'm literally only allowed to really have water, lemon water, and then I've been sneaking in the Four Sigmatic reishi and the lion's mane because I'm an herbalist, and I know that those are actually quite wonderful herbs for me right now. And especially with everything going on the tour, the lion's mane has been key. I literally have it in my green room, sitting and waiting for me. And yeah, it's been a real lifesaver. And they've been wonderful enough to give us a code for anybody who is also sucking it down like I am. You can use the code TBM15 for 15% off. And speaking of the tour, that was unreal. We had 250 people. It was totally sold out in the Los Angeles one. It was so cool having the team there, having our activation booth, and actually just having them be really a part of this, because you really get to see me as the face, but they're really who bring so much of the magic to this brand. And that was really cool to collaborate with them on this. And the gift bags were epic. I'll talk more about those. San Francisco is going to be tomorrow. I think it's tomorrow. I fly today. And then I think it's tomorrow night. That's right. I'm losing my brain. But yeah, the gift bags have been super unreal, and we had also Canyon Coffee out at the LA tour, and we were serving kombucha. And it was just an electric, amazing group of people. I can't wait for San Francisco. San Francisco, it's so cool because Cora is actually sponsoring and taking over, and they have an activation. They're taking over the bathroom. So Cora Organic Products, that's all feminine hygiene. And I personally actually don't use anything but a cup, and basically a cup. I used to use, this is so TMI, but I used to just use black underwear. I would rotate them because weirdly, my mom was always very natural about like, that's supposed to detoxify and come out. Don't put things up there. But for people who do, I mean, they have a wonderful cup at Cora, but for people who also like to use all of the other good stuff that, whether it's pads and tampons, they have all of that. They're not sponsoring this episode, but I just wanted to share that's what you all have to look forward to at that particular event. And then New York's coming up strong. We actually have been looking for a bigger venue. It's currently at 340 people. So if we find a bigger venue, we are going to open up more ticket sales. So stay tuned for that to see if we can, we've had so many inquiries about more. And then definitely if you're in London, I can't wait to connect in January. You can find the link below. I will be in Sydney, Australia in February, and then in Vancouver, BC in March. And of course, if you are a member, so a Pathway member, do use the code all caps member and you get $15 off, which is, I think, a cool incentive. What else? I've just been strong on my protocol. And honestly, I'm so grateful for my coach who's walking me through this, because I worked with both Karen Hurd and I'm working more closely with Unique Hammond, who's my coach. And I can just refresh on the story there that she had the worst case of Crohn's I've ever heard of for 5 years, 90 pounds, sleeping 2 hours a night. Her husband would hardly touch her. It felt like she was being bruised. Her inflammation was so bad, tried everything under the sun, from specialists to every functional doctor, naturopath, the best TCM person, best Ayurvedic in Los Angeles. And a friend handed her a book from Karen Hurd, said, I haven't read this. You might think it's crazy. If you don't resonate, don't. And she read it and she was like, this makes enough scientific sense to me that it might actually work. And therefore I forget the timeline, so don't kill me, Unique, if I'm fumbling this, but within certainly a year or a year and a half, she was in full remission, completely healed. It's been years since. She's literally the most physically beautiful person I've ever seen. And it's just really, really one day I inquired, we kismetly had lunch, and I said, what did you actually do to heal yourself? And she explained it to me, and I haven't looked back. And so I'm literally on full month 2 now, going into 3. And because we are addressing everything in my endocrine system, so reproductive, adrenal, hormones in general, it takes 3 months for the endocrine system to fully turn over and shift. So I imagine at 6 months, I'll probably see, hopefully, fingers crossed, a full healing. But it has been really bananas along the way. And there will be some times where it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And that's when I'm like, Unique, I have her on speed dial. I'm like, am I doing this wrong? What's wrong? And she'll be like, that was exactly what happened to me. You're right on track. So just to tell you, like, the first few things, literally within a week, my skin completely healed because I started to have a lot of acne that was coming, hormonal acne, especially during my luteal phase. And that cleared up instantly when I started it. And then my teeth got super white in my eyes. So I could tell, obviously, a lot of blood cleansing and liver cleansing was happening. And that's really at the root of this protocol. You're using soluble fiber all day long in the form of legumes, amongst other things you're doing within the protocol, but that's the main staple to completely. And at first I was the person who, and Unique too, she actually, this is what reassured me to try this, because when Unique first was working with Karen was like, now we're going to move into the detox phase where you will be eating literally beans all day long because it's the only soluble fiber aside from psyllium husk, which has no nutritional value. It's the only soluble fiber that binds with your bile and literally doesn't unbind until you excrete it out. Nothing else does that. So it's actually taking out all of that toxicity and all of the excess hormones, which is my issue. Like Karen says, why I'm not getting pregnant is because I'm an overproducer of hormones. Therefore, my egg is too ripe when it's, time to ovulate. And so, like a ripe apple, apparently your ovary has to kind of catapult an egg into a fallopian tube, and mine just sort of dissolves, explodes kind of. It's not making it there for sperm to hit. And if you're an underproducer, so say somebody who's not receiving your cycle, yours is too underdeveloped. So it's getting it back, healing back to that homeostasis space where my eggs are at the perfect ripeness at that time. So that's a little story on that. But back to sort of the other things that I noticed right away, which is kind of gross, but instantly all bad breath and BO. I never had too crazy bad breath, but BO is something that would just sort of like in the morning, and then I could use my natural deodorant and it would be fine. That's completely gone. And as we know, that's usually attributed to hormones. So I could see like instantly that I was detoxifying a ton of hormones. My blood sugar levels, which I've always struggled with, they became like 90% healed with my homeopath, but I still couldn't have blood sugar spiking things. They were instantly stable after a week. I won't get into the BMs, bowel movements, but that's all good. And you can tell I'm detoxifying a lot. And the craziest thing was within my ovulation, so 2 weeks after I started, I could feel my right ovary working again. It was like it woke up, and I hadn't felt that in 4 years. I'm so in tune with my body, so I can feel everything. And I was like, whoa, something's happening. My basal body temperatures were significantly higher because you could tell with my thyroidy stuff, they were very low. I was somebody who was like normally in the 95 zone. Any of you people who are trying to conceive know what I'm talking about. And now they're back into the 97s. So that turned around very quickly within 1 cycle. Craziest thing so far has been my testosterone, how much it has rebalanced and calibrated within 2 cycles, because around like a week before ovulation, I'm like a dude now. I have such crazy libido. I don't even remember the last time I've had libido because I've had such crazy hormonal adrenaline endocrine stuff forever. And it's like to the point where I'm like, looking at other people, it's crazy. So that, and then it dies off. Like it's normal then when I get into my luteal phase. And that was really cool because I'm like, wow, this means I'm definitely healing. I used to get a lot of liver and pancreas pains, showing that obviously both were not calcified, but I was struggling mostly with insulin resistance, and clearly my liver was needing to detoxify a lot of excess junk piled up in it, namely hormones. So Unique has been such a godsend. I'm so grateful for how much she holds my hand through this process. Her link is below, Unique Hammond, for anybody who's looking to heal gut, and it's Karen Hertz protocol. So again, if you're looking to work with Karen directly, you can find the link below. And the very cool thing is both will be on the podcast in January. And it's funny because I've seen in the Facebook group, people are like, oh God, I could never eat beans all day. And that was exactly what Unique said to Karen. And an interesting thing, it's also on Karen's topic page. They're like, it feels like shards of glass while I'm eating. Back then, Unique was like, I'm 90 pounds malnutrition. I have Crohn's and you want me to eat beans? Like, I can't even, tolerate so many foods at this point. And Karen was like, yep. And even to me as well, I was like, they make me super gassy. I can have like one serving a day. But then after that, and the way Karen explained it on the gassy component was that goes, and it did. She was totally correct. And so was Unique, who warned me about that as well. Totally within 2.5 weeks, that completely subsided. But I guess the gas, if I'm remembering this correctly, is attributed to there's a lot of fermentation of the bile in the liver. And so because the beans are actually, anybody who's eating beans are what is binding and coming through, the beans are getting a bad rap, but it's not actually the beans. It's because the beans are bringing that fermented bile through your digestive system. So now when I eat beans, it's like nothing. My body's completely recalibrated to it and it doesn't affect me in any way. But for the person in the Facebook group or other people who are like, I could never eat that many beans, I said the same thing. Unique said the same thing. And it's all good now. So that's where I'm at with that. And on deep bed rest still, that's the second component. So this is all the nutritional, and the bed rest is the second component to healing my adrenals fully. And I'm seeing a really crazy shift. I'm even seeing my body change. It's wild, like even how my skin hugs my abs now. It's really crazy. My skin looks totally different. So I can see a deep cellular thing happening. And so that is my big update. Those are all my big updates. Today's episode is such a great one. It's a process episode, and I'm very excited about it because it's with an early client of mine when I used to take clients, who then has now become a great friend, and her name is Sidney Bensimon, and Sidney Jill Bensimon. I've always just called her Sidney, and she's so remarkable because she's Parisian. She grew up in Paris and New York for a little while, and she's just so real and wonderful. And when I first met her, which we get into deeply, she was a photographer. She had been like waitressing and all the things, and she was already a photographer, but now she's catapulted into becoming like a super professional, high ad campaign photographer. And that was the thing she was manifesting along with partnership. And she goes deep into both. And she ended up manifesting, totally never even thought this was possible for her, buying land in Maine and building a home on it. And you get to hear the whole steps, how things just kept falling into place when that wasn't even something she could fathom. So it's super expansive for anybody doing this work, curious about this work, curious about manifestation. I love her to pieces. She's so raw and honest. And I think everybody is going to love this episode. Let's get into it. So we have Sidney Bensimon on today, who I'm so excited to introduce everybody to. This is a process episode, and a really exciting one because Sidney was actually a client of mine when I took clients, and she's gone on to manifest many things: love, career, as well as the dream home in Maine. So we're just talking about that you're headed up to Maine for a week.
Yes, I'm going. Okay, should I say hi to everybody?
Yeah, you do whatever you want.
Okay, well, hi. Well, first of all, thank you so much for talking with me. And I'm really excited to catch up this way because it's really special to me. I feel like your work has been helping me for the past 4 years, and you're just so generous with all of your time and knowledge. And it's really wonderful. I'm just really grateful for that. That's all. How I wanted to start first.
Oh, thank you for that, Sidney. You're such a light. And you're a Scorpio, which we'll get into, but you're like the most lightest Scorpio I've ever spoken to.
Well, my ascendant is in Taurus, so I heard that it would help.
Yeah. What's your moon?
Libra.
Oh, no wonder. Yeah, because we have so much there that's in sync, because I have the Capricorn moon, which your Tauran and Scorpio love. And then my Aquarius sun loves your Libra. So makes the perfect sense.
Sure.
You're like, whatever. So tell us about Maine. You're headed up there. Maybe give a quick intro onto Maine. I know we might touch on it later to expand to people that this is possible for them to build a house and all that stuff. But yeah, tell us about what it's like.
So I'm French, but I started going to Maine actually with an ex-boyfriend and fell in love with Maine. But then especially the mid-coast, I shot a wedding and stayed in Camden for 10 days with my friends and just felt in my heart like I wanted to be a part of it. It was very raw and wild, and I, in a very short amount, met all these creatives that were from New York and Greenpoint, especially, which is where I live, most of the time. And I just got so inspired, and the process of creating what I did just started there, and then found land that I got for basically half off, because that's all. Yeah. Which was awesome. And it was on a cove. It's on a cove, on a tidal cove. So it's on the water, which was important to me. And then from there started the process of trying to find the right people that were in line with me, that I felt comfortable with. And I ended up designing a home with my architect, who is Italian, but works in New York and did his education in Copenhagen. And his name is Alessandro Ronfini. He's awesome. And together for about 8 months, we designed my dream home. And I was like, here's my Pinterest board.
All my contractors hate Pinterest.
Oh yeah, but they have to get to learn it.
Oh yeah.
And, parallelly, he's building his house upstate, and his wife is a friend of mine who's a prop stylist, and she used to be an architect. So it was just a really perfect collaboration. Every Monday night we would have pizza night and just design my house that I had in my head. And he did it, which was amazing. And I have to say that this whole process was such a learning experience. And, I came into so many challenges and blocks because I kept on meeting contractors and people that were like, oh, where's your husband? Who are you doing this with? Are your parents helping you? And, I had no help at all. And I was single at the time. And I also didn't have any savings or any money. I just really followed my dreams and was like, you know what? If this is meant to happen, the universe is going to support me. And if at any point I feel like I'm off balance and it feels wrong, I will stop.
Well, this is a really good place to segue, actually, because when I first met Sidney, this wasn't even it was maybe not a wish or a dream, but the fact of finding funding, that all started to manifest and unravel. So before we go there, because I know it's going to be expansive for people, because I think when I first met you, you were really, you had photography clients going, but you were wanting to really take it to the next level. You were single. And so I want to go back first to your cultural upbringing and background, because we know you're French, but tell us about all the things, because you have a colorful past.
Yes, sure. So I grew up around and in Paris with my family. And then I moved to New York when I was 14 with my family. I didn't speak English, but my dad wanted to move us to New York because it was his dream. And so he moved 6 months before us, and then we all moved. And I feel like my dad is a big dreamer, and he's also, always like, if you believe you can do something, it'll happen. Like, you have to just like pretend that it's already happening and it'll happen.
Wow.
And he's kind of an eccentric person, but that was a really cool thing that I learned from him. And so he's a hairdresser and he's a creative, and my mom's a painter. And so I come from creative backgrounds, but, none of them grew up with money. And, my dad made a name for himself by working really, really hard, and he still is, which is, something that I work on in your practice, in your workshops, to just debunker the idea that I have to work really hard to make money.
Absolutely. And your dad was Moroccan?
Yes, my dad is Moroccan. So he's a Moroccan Jew. He grew up in Israel, but he was born in Casablanca.
Wow.
And moved to Paris when he was 8 years old.
And your mom is French?
And my mom is French, and blonde hair, blue eyes, great hair.
Because Sidney has the most beautiful skin, but also you have the curliest natural hair on the planet.
On the planet.
And how many siblings were there? I can't remember.
So I'm the oldest of four. I have two sisters and a brother. I think that just growing up in a time where they didn't have I don't feel like they had as many tools as we have now. And we're just lucky, I guess. So yeah, it's, everybody's got issues with their parents.
Everybody. Welcome to inner child.
Yeah, exactly. But I do work on it all the time. I did a lot of, I went through a divorce when I was 27, and I did a lot of work on my relationship, my understanding of my relationship with my mom, and, like all of those things back then. And, it still comes up, obviously.
Okay, so I want to set the tone because you had been in a prior marriage to whom you ended up discovering was a narcissist. So you got the courage to leave in your Saturn return. So I know that a big thing you were manifesting when we came together was partnership, and set the tone a little bit for where you were at in photography and what you had been doing before you kind of went down this journey, even though you've been spiritual forever and done so much work forever. Kind of set the tone for us, past and where you were when we met.
Okay, when we met. So I had been doing digital teching and photography, and I was working for the Soho House, and I was working for little things here and there. I did not have an agent back then. I didn't shoot commercial jobs. I was only doing editorial jobs, which are, very great and creative, but also don't bring in as much money. So that, and I didn't have any money. So
you're like, how do I say this? I was working at Stella before all this.
Yeah. Like, I was a server for 10 years. I had like 40 jobs, to make ends meet and to do what I wanted to do. And yeah, that was my professional career. And I really wanted to have an agent that I loved and wanted to shoot things that were on par with all of the other people that I look up to in my professional business. And I remember writing in my notebook, like, these are the things that I want. And in order for me to get to there and to get the opportunities, because I had done the work and I felt like I was talented, but I needed the opportunity to get me there. And I was like, in order for that to happen, I need a miracle. Like, literally, I need a miracle. But
did you always dream of being a photographer, Sidney?
Well, I went to UGA for undergrad, and I actually majored in religious studies, and I minored in Japanese.
Wow.
But I always wanted to go to art school, and I did a lot of painting, and I I remember just like painting and being like, I wanted to look like that, but I wanted to look cleaner and not have the brush strokes, you know? So I think I didn't find my medium until I actually went to Morocco for a study abroad.
How old were you then?
21, I think. Yeah. And I did a study abroad there, and we spent, you know, a night in the Sahara. And I had this girl that was in my class, and she was taking photos, and she had this amazing camera. And at first I wanted to do video. So I had a video camera and I was shooting film. But then actually when I came back, so I guess she was an expander for me, because I was like, wow, this is so awesome. But then on my trip back, my video camera got stolen from my suitcase. And yeah, I started from scratch. And then I went to grad school at the Portfolio Center in Atlanta, and I took illustration classes and all that stuff. And the first day I'd had like 4 classes. One of them was photography. And I went to the photo class, and then like 30 minutes into the class, which there was only 4 people in it, but I like got out, went straight to the director's office, and I started crying. And I was like, I need to change all my classes to photo.
Wow. Oh my God. So it was a full body experience.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
I love my job so much. I feel like it's my way of communicating, you know, like, and it's also my way of staying hopeful, I think.
Really, yeah, especially in this world, because you're able to create your whole thing, not just an image, but a world within photography. I totally understand that. And this is abrupt, but tell us your human design.
Oh, I'm not 100% sure what it means, but I think I'm a projector.
Okay. I remember that. We were all having dinner in New York, and there were 3 projectors and an MG, and guess who was late to dinner? The MG.
She's pretty awesome, though.
Or there were 5 of us. Yeah, no, she's amazing. I love, Nagar. Nagar, we're giving you a shout out in this. Oh my God.
Hi, girl. So that's what happened. And then I just like, every time I would talk about photography, because I feel like I'm very sensitive, I would just cry. I mean, I still do.
Wow. Oh my gosh. That's
I love
so
it.
special. I feel like you've done it in past lives. If it's that, you know, emotional and connected to you, I mean, I feel like you've been carrying that for a while, and you're so talented at what you do. Okay.
Thank you. Well, okay. So the last thing on that, I've been doing Vedic meditation for about 10 years now. And my teacher, when he gave me my mantra, because, you know, when you do Vedic meditation, you get a special mantra by your teacher.
What's yours? Just kidding.
I'm like, wait, what? I can't tell you that.
Totally joking.
But so when he gave me my mantra, he said, you were born to be a seer. And I was like, well, I like photography. Like, is that what it means? And he's like, sure.
Yeah. He's like, okay, you'll find out later.
Yeah.
This was John?
No, Tom Knowles.
Oh, you originally did it with Tom, right? Mm-hmm. And you do this CDs, right? You do those every day. Who taught you? I can't get anybody to teach me those.
Well, you know, so my friend Theo, I learned the Siddhis from him, but I didn't finish the last one. And I actually kind of stopped doing it because I'm doing the DRE and I'm doing all that. I can't do it all.
Because that's an hour a day. I mean, when you're doing those, right?
It's not so long. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes extra, and it can go very quickly, but for me, it's a lot of work. Like it's kind of like tiring.
I see. So it exhausts your nervous system.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And honestly, because you have your second part of your mantra now, you're like graduated. So that's already 30 minutes a day. So another 15, you're almost at an hour. I mean, who has the time?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I wake up early, but also it's not even just the time. I mean, a lot of people do it, and like props to you if you can do it all. But I just, you know, I don't want to spend more than an hour and a half like meditating and doing my spiritual work during the day.
I agree. I'm right there with you.
Because then I'm in my head and I'm not grounded, you know?
In your body. I totally agree. If I do like too much Kundalini and all that stuff, I'm in my head all day. So Vata, and I think knowing yourself and your body is so important, especially as a projector. Okay. So you kind of gave us background and laid the land on photography. Give us that in relationship.
Okay. So I was with my ex-husband for about 6 years. And, you know, we grew up together. We were young, got married. We were codependent. I felt, you know, I loved him so much. I'm sure he loved me so much too. And we were fighting all the time and having so much fun parallelly. You know, it was just like two kids growing up, and there were so many things that I wasn't happy with, and I just didn't know how to shake it off. And one thing led to the next, and we got a divorce. It was very hard for me. It took me about 5 years to get over it, really. And I did a lot of work, a lot of energy work, a lot of spiritual work. I was just so sad and couldn't shake it off for a very long time. I felt guilty. I felt everything. So, but then, you know, I moved to New York and had an Italian boyfriend who was awesome. And he was just like, always like, don't worry, don't worry, eat the pasta. If he hears this, he's going to be so pissed off. But yeah, and then, you know, I was always looking for my partner, and I felt like it was so hard, just like my expansion in my business. I would write and I would be like, if I find the person that I'm supposed to be with, it's going to take a miracle.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
I did not want to settle. Yeah. I was happy in my life, and I knew what it was like to struggle with a partnership. And there's no way in hell that I would spend a day with someone that pisses me off, or that I have to compromise with, or that I have to like not be my true self in order to be in a relationship. It's not worth it for me. And even though I felt lonely and sad, and I really wanted this to happen to me, you know, I didn't want to settle. And I also didn't want to be online. I didn't want to date online. I didn't want that to be my story. I was like, I wanted to be a romantic story. I wanted to be like awesome when I meet the person, if I'm meant to meet the person. It was a struggle, and I had to, you know, it's hard to be single when you know you want a family and you want to be in a relationship. Absolutely. So, but you know what? It's harder to be in a sucky relationship.
It really is. It's more exhausting at the end. A lot of lessons, a lot of growth, but it's more exhausting at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, I made my list.
Oh, that's what I was going to be my next question. Are you a specific or non-specific manifestor? Do you know?
Oh, I was so fucking specific.
Okay. Tell us about your list in bold. I know you have probably many variations and adaptations, but tell us what your lists look like in both career and relationship, because they're so tied that I'm going to parallel them a little bit.
Okay. So for my relationship, I wanted to be with someone who was spiritual, someone that didn't, you know, make fun of me for my meditations and, you know, try to belittle me for my belief system. That was really important because I had a boyfriend that did that. And that really affected me, and I did not like that. I wanted to be with someone that was creative, that was musically inclined, someone that had green eyes.
Wow.
Yeah, someone that was taller than me and around my age.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to be with someone that was funny and sweet and compassionate, and that was working with their hands. I wrote that down. I even wrote down, he has a sister and I get along with her.
Wow. Have you had experience in the past where that didn't work out?
Yes.
Okay. I've had it with brothers. So that's interesting. Wow.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I hadn't met anyone with a sister until I met Devin.
Wow. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. That's amazing. And then, go ahead.
Oh, and also I said, he lives in the best neighborhood.
That's really important in New York.
Yes.
Which we'll get into how that all worked out.
Yeah. That's a good one.
And tell us about career, sort of your first, I know we got a little taste of it with the miracle, but when you actually kind of had a little bit more specificity in career, what did that list look like originally?
My list for work was, I wanted to be with an agent. I wanted to be with an agent that I felt I could grow in my career for a very long time, if not forever, that believed in me. And because, your agent is basically, 25% of everything you do goes to them, and they help you build your career. So, I talked to my agent, Robin, like literally all day long.
Wow.
So, whether I'm working or not, I feel bad for her, but it's just the way it is.
She's stoked. You're making her good money.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that, and I wanted to work on projects that, felt inspiring to me or felt like they were worth my time. And I wanted to travel. And I wanted to make a certain amount of money. So I put that down for sure. And that grows all the time. I'm like making that new list all the time.
Good. That's so important. Do you feel like, and I know that this is a little bit of a jump forward, that you don't have to totally cast lists anymore? Stuff just starts to show up because you have like a mental intention with it?
Yes.
Yeah. And would you say learning some of the, how do I put it? Like the energetics of manifestation were helpful too. Like actually learning what tests are and expanders are. Do you think that also made the process roll a little bit?
Yes, because, I think that everything in life is a perspective. And, the way you talk about, for example, expanders and how, for example, when you talk about envy versus jealousy, and I'm a Scorpio, so I had that a lot. But just the fact you're putting like a positive outlook on it, and that's really cool because I'm a really good learner. Like I can give me the homework and I'll do it, and my mind, I can click into something very fast if I figure out how to do it. So just the idea that you're like, okay, this is this is what happens when this happens. It's because of this, and do this and that. And then that like really resonated with me. Mm-hmm. And it's a quick growth when you understand it.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of that, for both career and relationship, because then I want you to get into the full relationship story. It's so kismet for anybody out here looking for a relationship. But what were your biggest expanders and where did you find them, or how did they show up in your life for both career and relationship?
Okay. For a relationship, when I was in Bali, I hung out with my friend Mia, she's an amazing artist, and she has a lot of children. But, I saw her interacting with her family and her sister who had kids, and everybody was just like, the family is just so happy and, so creative. And she has the kids. She's beautiful. She's not like, she's tired, but she's not overly tired. She's doing her creative work. And that was I wanted to soak in that like forever. So I was like, okay, this is my expander. So, I follow her on Instagram, and every time I see her, it just like makes me happy and reminds me that like it's possible.
Right. I agree.
So that's one example.
Yeah.
And then for photography, I actually stopped. Per your suggestion, I stopped following all the people all the photographers that weren't inspiring to me, or just like gave me too much anxiety, where I would, like see, just like feel like I had competition with them in a way. Mm-hmm. And I just started following photographers that I was looking up to. And, you know, there's a few of them out there that are working moms that do amazing jobs, and they have been in the, you know, in the industry for so many years and are still working. And that's where I want to grow, and that's where I wanted to be. So that I looked up to them.
So social media was really, it's been super helpful for this for you.
Yes.
Awesome. I think that's really important for people to hear, because I think social media can be such a triggering place, but if we actually use it as this kind of a tool and really curate it to our needs, it's so expansive. And how lucky we have access to such a tool.
Absolutely. And I also don't scroll, because scrolling is really like, it gives me a headache and it makes me spinny.
It makes me vata. Like I start to get like I'm on coke or something. I'm like, it's so weird. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. I get it. Okay. So now we're going to start to go into the relationship part. We'll focus on that more. And if you think, you know, you have a parallel in career, because career started to transform before the relationship fully, but the relationship really touches the formula really well, I think. And it took a bit for you. So I want to touch on that. So starting with the relationship, as you were getting closer to your partner, what test did you face?
I dated a guy that was the guy from Maine. I dated him and I really liked him, but he triggered me so much. I think he was also a narcissist.
Yeah.
And I just felt unhappy and everything. And then I just like broke up with him and was on my own. And I said to myself, I'm not going to make any sacrifices for my life in order to be in a relationship. And then I went through what you call the magic dark.
Yes. And how long was the magic dark for you before we get into it?
About a year, year and a half, a long time.
I think that's important for people to hear, because I see this in the Facebook group. They're like, God, have I just been in the magic dark for a year? And we'll hear about your energetics around that. But I think, how long did it take you to manifest your partner? It was a while.
I mean, 30, I don't know.
Yeah, you're like my life. A lifetime.
Yes.
Okay, back to the magic dark.
It took forever.
And was so worth it, because I remember going out to dinner with you, with Nagar, and I don't remember, Desiree Pace, I think. Mm-hmm. And you were so finely in your worth. I remember you were like, didn't give a shit anymore. Like you were so in your worth. I was like, oh my God, he's around the corner.
You said that to me.
I knew it. I totally knew it. So I think it's important for people to hear. It took you a while, but was so worth it. So let's get into that magic darky space, because I think a year and a half breakdown is a good one for people who are just in a magic dark for a long time and about to give up.
Yes. And so I think that there's a few things that I did while I was in the magic dark that was really pivotal for me. One, when I saw people that were in love, instead of feeling sad for myself, or instead of having this subconscious belief like, well, they have it and I'm not having it, I completely switched my mindset and I like blessed them. And I was like, wow, if that happens to me, I'll be so psyched.
Wow. So you just consciously reinforced over and over that that's possible.
Yes, but I also let it go right away. And wow. And it was around Christmas time, and I did a sailing collective trip, and we sailed through the Phuket Islands, and then I went to Chiang Mai and Laos. I went to Laos by myself. And when I came back, it was about February, and I just felt so much love and gratitude in my body. It was very strange. Like, you know, when you first learn to meditate, it happens to some people. You just are like, you feel like you're on drugs, like you're high or something.
Yeah, totally.
That's what happened to me. I came back and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I fell in love, and I didn't know there was no one to fall in love with.
Wow. I love the energetics of that. That's so special.
Yeah. So I was like, and I wrote about it and I just felt so grateful. And, I just, yeah, I was in a good place and I was shooting stuff that I loved and I was traveling for work. And, I was really feeling good. And I think that's really important for people that are single to like really understand that you can, I mean, everyone knows this, but when you're in your head too much, it's really, you're not magnetic, when you're sad or jealous or, you can feel all those feelings, but simultaneously, I think that it's really important to understand that, like, when you're outside, you have a frequency. And even if you're, and even if you're right next to the person you're supposed to be with, you're not going to attract anyone if you're so sad, maybe you will, I don't know.
Well, I think the really important thing is to feel those feelings, but don't just sit with them, identify them and do the work to look at where they're from, unblock them, get rid, because that's what's going to open up the space to get into what you're talking about of like being able to even get to that place in Laos where you feel like you fell in love, but just with life, like your heart fell in love, and if you're sitting in those energetics of like despair and sadness and, and I think it's so important to look at where is that coming from? What do I need to work through in order to kind of clean up the debris to be able to have space to get to the next level?
You're correct. Yes, I truly believe that.
So I'm quickly interrupting this episode to invite you, if you're ready to start your manifestation journey, or if anything you've heard in our manifestation episodes has piqued your interest to begin. We have a la carte workshops in everything from the basics bundle, which is what we recommend to everyone who starts. It's the formula that actually teaches you how to manifest, unblocked inner child, and unblocked shadow. We also have a la carte workshops on love and money. But the real gem is the Pathway membership because it encompasses every single workshop we have. It's a year-long membership with full access to the few a la carte offerings we have and exclusive workshops not available anywhere else, such as the daily practice, which is what everybody in the Pathway uses, hopefully at least 3 times a week to daily in order to truly create the new neural pathways that one needs in order to manifest, and houses the library of our deep imaginings, which is our unique hypnosis process that allows you to get into your subconscious and overwrite those old neural pathways, creating the new ones. You can use our special code EXPANDED, all caps, EXPANDED, to receive $20 off your first a la carte workshop purchase or $20 off your first month of the Pathway. Again, that's all caps, EXPANDED, EXPANDED. Okay, now back to the episode.
I came back and I started shooting this job that took me to Chicago and California. And it was, I was shooting video and stills for a coffee company.
Can we pause? Just because I know that this is where it's going to start to get good. I want to segue to career really quick. What were the pivotal things that finally set your career off? What were the small miracles that equated to what you have now? And if you have any notes on tests, Magic Dark, expanders on that, just in a nutshell.
Okay. So when I was in Laos, I didn't have an agent, but I was talking to 3 of them.
Okay.
And then I came back and I was really aware of how my communication, which with each one of them were. And the person that I'm with now, she was just so sweet. It took me 3 months to make my decision. And every time I would talk to her, she would just like write me an email once a month and she would say, we're thinking about you. We hope you're doing well. We're here if you have any questions. Like, she lets me come to her. She didn't pressure me. She was supportive. She was already doing all the things I wanted in an agent. And I think that for me was really important. It's not about the agent. My job is not about the agent, but it was very important for me to have that by my side in order to believe that I could get to where I am now.
And what were the wins that even attracted agents courting you into your life?
I mean, I shot Stella Artois campaign.
And I remember you reached out and you're like, I manifested. How did that come? Because that was a big pivotal turning point in your career.
Yes, it was. Okay, so I was with an agency that I had not signed a contract with for about 6 months, and it was just not the right fit, but they helped me get a few jobs. So I felt like I was on my way, but the interaction and the attention that I was getting from them was not what I wanted, and it didn't feel right. So I left them. And I feel like, I guess that's what you would call just like sticking to your worth, right?
Totally. And passing a test because you didn't sign the contract and you didn't stay. You could have been like, oh my gosh, if I leave this, I'm not going to have anybody getting me these jobs anymore. There could have been a lot of fears. But yeah, it was like passing literally a dating test essentially, or a small relationship dating experience. You're like, no, this isn't right. I'm going to leave and walk. I know something better is out there for me.
Exactly. So I did without anything and just went on my business, and then, met with all these people and just like really took my time. I think that that's something I don't do a lot, or I'm not very patient. So I just, and I did that. And then I got my good agent, and she helped me get all these jobs that are just amazing.
And how long after Laos did you get this coffee job once you signed with this agent?
So I signed with my agency in March. Actually, Mars Avril. In April.
Okay.
I signed in April, and I was in Laos in February. And so I already had a job from an art director that I was friendly with, Maggie. So she hired me to do the whole content for this coffee company called Trade.
Okay.
So I did that without my agent.
Oh, I see. Okay. And so you already had that lined up before you signed with the agent?
Yes. Correct.
Excellent. And is this the coffee job that took you to the coffee person?
Yes.
Okay, continue. Now we can wrap them together. Okay.
All right. So I was traveling, and I went to California, and I'm going to try to make it on the shorter side.
Okay.
But I went to California, and I was doing videos and stills, like I said.
How long was this after our dinner with Nagar?
Like 3 weeks.
I knew it was so fucking close. Okay.
It was really close. Yeah. It was about less than a month, I would say.
Oh, so exciting.
Yeah. So then I ended up going to Santa Cruz, and it was the few days in California were just very strange. We stayed in hotels, and all of my hotel rooms numbers were 333s. And I was like, what is that? Like, after the third one, you're like, well, that's weird.
Yeah.
But then in the morning in Santa Cruz, I woke up at 3:33 in the morning, and I could not go to sleep. And I felt like there was a storm outside. It was moody. And I think I was telling you this over dinner, but I had this feeling like time was just warping. And I've had that feeling before where, you make these movements and you get ready for the work or whatever, but you feel like you're going super fast, but in slow motion. Mm-hmm. And whenever it's hard to explain, but it's just like it's just a weird time understand like relationship, I guess, that I have only sometimes.
And I have to note, everybody has a version of this when a manifestation is going to come through. So it's so important to watch your patterning in the past. Mine is I feel like the whatever it is on my left shoulder, and I can feel chills down my spine a lot. And I'm like, oh, holy shit, my thing's coming. So this is your version of that.
That's so cool.
Isn't that magic?
Yes, it's magic. So yeah, I felt like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, something's about to happen. I really hope it's good and not bad, because you just never know. I always feel like it's not, the way I saw it is, it's not my manifestation coming. It's just something big is about to happen in my life. And it actually, now that I think about it, it's always good.
Mm-hmm. Now you know.
Now I know. So we went to the factory and I met Devin basically right away. And he was the head of coffee. And, it was very professional. And we just chit-chatted. And I thought he was very handsome. But, I'm not shy, but like I'm not really an extrovert. I don't know.
Extrovert. Yeah, exactly.
I'm not that extroverted. So, I was just doing my job and chit-chatting with him. And there is definitely a special interaction between us, I believe. And, he was talking to me. He's like, where are you from? And I said, I'm from New York. And he was like, oh, my best friend lives in New York. He lives in Brooklyn. And I'm like, yeah, I live in Brooklyn. And he's like, oh, that's cool. He lives in Greenpoint. I'm like, yeah, I live in Greenpoint. And he's like, oh, well, that's awesome. Yeah, I went a couple of times. I think he lives on Lorimer Street. And I was like, oh, I live on Lorimer Street. And a few days later, I found out that actually his best friend is exactly across the street from my house.
Wow.
So that's crazy. That was
Magic.
Definitely a sign for him to help him through what he needed to go through.
Yeah.
So we just, had a business interaction that was sweet.
But you have to talk about like electricity was going on.
Oh yeah, I'm telling you.
Okay.
So I was upstairs talking to Maggie and I was like, okay, I need to shut the overhead lights to shoot these portraits because I usually shoot them outside and it was pouring rain. So I couldn't do that. And I said, I need to talk to I said, I need to find the person to talk to turn off the overhead lights. And as soon as I said that, the entire power shut down of the factory.
I'm feeling like practical magic vibes here.
Absolutely. And she looked at me and she had shivers and she was like, whoa, you did this. And I was like, okay, I don't know what's going on, but it ended up happening 3 times.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was really crazy. And then we left and I didn't even say goodbye to Devin. And he ended up emailing me that he was sorry the power was shutting down. And, really we started emailing back and forth. And he was always asking me questions and he was just like so interested in me. I was like, what's going on? And, a few weeks went by and we talk all the time, but, only by email and we're getting to know each other versus email, but via email. And he's traveling all around the world and I'm traveling. I was in Mexico after that. And he was in, I think, Costa Rica. And I asked him something and I said to him, whoa, must be so hard for your girlfriend, you traveling so much. And he texted me back, actually, there's something I need to tell you. Dum, dum, dum.
So hard.
Yeah, so hard. My heart went all the way down to the bottom of the hill when he wrote that. And then he took the time to write me a very long email, an email that was saying that he was not only in a relationship, but engaged.
Oof.
But he had been engaged for 5 years, and that, you know, he didn't know how to untangle himself because everything was, you know, together as you are when you're in a long-term relationship, and that it was less than smooth sailing, and that he didn't know how to get out of it, and that he knew that he needed to, but that said, he was still in a relationship. And then the second paragraph was that he said to me that when I walked into his factory, he always heard of stories like that, but always thought that it was a hoax. And he said that I was like a light shining in, and he thought he knew me my whole life.
Wow.
His whole life, and that he had never felt like this before, and that he wants to tell me everything and all this stuff. And it was like, and when he sent this email, an earthquake happened.
Wow.
So everything was being shaken up under his grounds, literally.
Yeah.
And that's when, very important part of the story, I said to him that I could not talk to him anymore. That it was, that I was so grateful to have had that interaction with him and met him, and that I knew he deserved the best, but I was not in a place to talk to somebody who was in a relationship. And
so well done. So important.
Work. And I was like, you know what? You know where I live. If you ever find yourself single, come to New York City and take me out. And he did.
Wow.
Like 2 weeks later, you know, he broke up with his girlfriend, not because of me, because it needed to happen. And a lot of things I'm sure I don't know was happening on his end.
Mm-hmm.
He did the work, and it took him 2.5 months. And we talked all the time, and we got to know each other over email, over the phone. And it was so, I mean, I think I lost like 10 pounds. I looked great though.
Awesome.
But I was like so nervous, and it was so exciting. But also I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Yeah. I don't even know this guy. I've never hung out with him. I met him for 2 hours, but he was saying the same thing. But he did the work on his own. And he did what he needed to do. And he was supportive to his ex-girlfriend when needed around those times, which is something that I think is important because, you know, my love story is the best story in my life that I've ever heard of, but it's also not all pink.
Yeah. It's pain. There's pain, always pain.
Yes. And so, and it was, and you know, oh my gosh, I felt so deeply for her and for him and for her. And I felt so guilty, even though I hadn't done anything. But, you know, I remember my ex-husband, you know, met the girl that I think he's still with just like very briefly after we split up. And I was like so upset at her. And him, and I had never met her. But then I was like, here I am. Like you know, I'm in those shoes now.
Mm-hmm.
So that was crazy. But it was fine. Cause then he got himself out of whatever he needed to get out of. And they weren't living together anymore. And 2.5 months went by, and he came to New York to go visit his best friend. And he hung out with him for a few days. And then we went on our first date on Tuesday, which lasted about 48 hours.
This is so French too. Like in France, where people just kind of are boyfriend and girlfriend. The first night they like sleep at each other's house, and then they never move out.
Actually, we didn't sleep together the first night,
which is good.
Yes, which is good, which is what you say. But you know, our date started at like 8:30 in the morning, walking my sweet dog and like moving my car, and you know. And it was basically the best week of our lives. And we were so happy. And then that week just helped us move through this really crazy summer of being together, you know, and we traveled everywhere. We met all over the place and we courted each other, and it was so sweet and so amazing. And now he lives with me.
How long has it been now?
About a year and a half. So it's pretty, it's on the new side, but we're getting older. So
yeah, and you guys just know,
and we know, yes. He lives across the street from his best friend, and he tells me literally every day, I love my life. I'm so happy. I love New York. Happy. I love you. Like, it's just the best. And, it's like we haven't fought yet, really.
Wow.
It's just super smooth and awesome.
And in your career, would you say that this new love parallels a ton of new success and growth in your career as well?
Absolutely. So that summer when I hung out with him, I got the Coca-Cola holiday campaign that I shot, and then, a bunch of other ones, but that one was a big one.
And now you're like, not a question that you'll be a working photographer.
Yes. Now it's good. I'm obviously always trying to up-level myself in that area. I always want to work more, and there's ebbs and flows in my business that, the ebbs are always tough. But yeah, and I also didn't know, going back to my house, I didn't know that I wanted to build it. And when I met him, he was like, well, don't do it for me, but you should build this. It's awesome.
Wow. And so everything, and this is how it works, right? Love and money is so connected, I believe, energetically in manifestation, that the more that one, you're unblocked in one and feeding it and getting into your deeper worth and deservingness, the more the other. And it seems like they've really paralleled each other, and they're feeding each other. And when I say money, that means career, physical, tangible money. It means security, your homes and all the things. And I would say that they're all feeding and growing together. You're becoming more and more deserving and worthy in all of them.
Yes. And, so many magical things happened that were just like, there are so many signs along the way for both of us to help us grow towards what we are doing now, because, it's tough to, he had to change his entire life, sell everything and move across country without it, lose his job, find something else, and that took him a lot of courage, and he need, a lot of energy to do all of that.
And very magnetic.
And absolutely very magnetic. I think that courage brings you a lot,
I agree.
But yeah, so many magical things. Like, I was about to sign for my loan, and it was like an extra $20,000 that I didn't expect. And then I signed the loan, and I was like, you know what? It's fine. I'll figure it out.
You jumped off a cliff.
I jumped off the cliff, and a week later I got a paycheck from the residual. They wanted extra usage, and it was $20,000, like basically free money.
Yep. That's how it works. What other like kismet things like that have happened since basically Laos? That's a great turning point in your life.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So many things. Basically, my house is a great example of manifesting, because everything in there is traded off. So I have to shoot it all.
Completely.
But I have like $12,000 worth of faucets that, is traded, and I have a beautiful terrazzo piece from London that's in my kitchen island that was literally gifted to me by, so strange, like this woman that I used to babysit for. She was in New York one day, took me out to lunch. We caught up, and she said, I want to gift you something for your house. I'm so proud of you. I want to buy you your kitchen island counter.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Just like all these things, and I have a friend that was very supportive in Maine. I stayed at his house the entire time the build was going through. And yeah, so many things that,
Wow.
when you're talking about it, it's like, whoa, so, I feel like I live a very magical life, but also on the day to day, I'm like, ugh, things aren't happening.
Yeah, everybody. That's my thing too. I have to change all the time. I can focus on the little things, the negative, the stuff that has to change, even though there's like pure 90% magic just like flourishing around me at all times.
Yeah.
It's just the human condition to overcome into consciousness. I think it's part of our journey. During the process of career and of this relationship and the house, what would you say, within the last 3 years relatively, were the biggest rock bottoms that you had to pull yourself out of that were like the biggest blessings in disguise?
Oof. Well, as you know a little bit, I was designing my house with someone else, and it was a big disappointment, and I had to start from scratch, and it was
lose money.
And it was a really big, it was really hard for me because I hate confrontation. So that was really bad. I feel like that was rock bottom. And simultaneously around the same time, I guess not. That was after. Also the rock bottom of in my loving relationship, I was like so in love with this guy that was not right for me, but I kept on like trying to force it. I was like, okay, I'm going to make this work. And, it was just when we broke up, or when I broke up with him, I was just so sad. I felt like it wasn't even about him. I just felt like I was going through like a divorce all over again. And I felt like I was, unlovable. That was really hard. That was a rock bottom, I would call it. And I think those are the things that are coming to mind.
And when you, I believe when we're receiving those rock bottoms, our manifestations are close and they're just a little bit higher in the worth than where we are at that point. So the universe is literally like trying to speed us up to connect with it. Well, how do you feel you were being tested in those two experiences?
I wasn't listening to my intuition.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like things weren't right, but I was forcing them to keep going. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. And when it comes to worthiness, let's say, how do you feel you were settling in those two experiences?
Yeah, I just felt like because I didn't have a lot of confidence, I wasn't even second guessing the things that were happening to me. I think that's what happens when you don't have a lot of confidence, or when you're lacking in some way, then you're just like, oh, well, that's what happens to me, But then when you're really doing clarity work and you're like, well, actually, this is how other people could be experiencing it, and I could be that person,
Completely.
then you just switch gear and you're like, this is unacceptable.
Absolutely.
Don't disrespect me.
I love it. And I'm so proud of you for not settling. And I know both of those, you had to make the choice to remove yourself from both of those experiences. And that's so hard. But as you can see, it creates so much magnetism. And
yes.
Everybody just needs to hear when you're going through those rock bottoms that you're having to, either you've been forced out of or you're forcing yourself out of, just look at the beauty that's waiting for you on the other side. I think it's so important to have that perspective for other people, because I've sure as hell been in a lot of those, and it's fucking hard.
Yeah. It's hard to make decisions, but it comes back to the idea of being courageous again, I think. Just really being like, okay, this is going to be hard, but I'm going to do it. And I don't know what's next, but it's this way or no way at all.
Yeah, I agree. I love that. Tell us how we can follow your house on Instagram, because it's so beautiful for the person who's looking for house inspo.
Thank you. So I created an Instagram for the house because I wanted all the people that helped me, especially my contractor and my architect and all the people that helped me along the way to just, have a place where they could tell their clients like, hey, go check out this place. I did that, with Sidney. So the handle is Stella House _Maine, and it's named after my dog who passed away.
Oh my God, Stella.
I know, Stella was the best. And and my regular one is Sidney Bensimon. It's just my name.
Oh, I've always called you Bensimon. Well,
you can say Sidney Bensimon or you can say Sidney Bensimon. But when I'm on the phone with the bank, they're like, what's your last name?
Well, and also it's so funny because my ex's mom is Italian French. Her mother's Italian, her father's French. She grew up in Paris as well. And she grew up in the Italian little district that the Bensimon founder of the shoes.
Really?
Yeah. And so are you guys related?
I wish.
I know, right? You're like, I'm having
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
But no, it's actually a very rare last name. There's, Gilles Bensimon, who's also a photographer, and Jill is my middle name. And I don't know my grandfather, so I always say that he could be my grandfather.
Oh, isn't that amazing?
But yeah, and then there's the shoe company that's like a clothing line as well in Paris that's really well known.
Oh, wow. Well, I think this is a fun little segue because you grew up in the Marais, right?
Yes.
Which is the coolest part of Paris, in my opinion. Like, it's my favorite part of Paris when I'm there. It's where I always stay. What was it like when you were little?
Oh, it was hard. That's where we moved. It's beautiful, of course. And there's so many, it's nothing is one facet, right? It's all multifaceted. So of course it was so hard to move out of Paris, but as a Jewish family, my dad would always get harassed, like literally all the time. Yes. And, people would try to, I felt unsafe all the time. And when I would come home from school or whatever, there's so many times we call it la racaille, which is not a gang, but, kids that are just trying
kind
to
of
start
punks.
trouble. Yeah. Always just, there's a lot of negative energy still remaining in Europe, and maybe it's changed now, but it was very hard to be a positive person. I remember in school, people would be like, why are you talking about yourself? Why are you so positive?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, Max lived in Paris for 2 years when he was younger, and he was always getting robbed and shit on the subway.
It happens all the time.
Totally. Yeah. It's so hard. And I know that to be true with my ex as well, who would go and stay with their grandparents. They actually had to move out of the suburb that they were in because it just became way too dangerous.
Yes. So it's a very real thing. And it's really unfortunate because there's so much charm in Paris. But I think it's changing a little bit. I went there last April, and when you're there for a week, you don't see.
Oh no, yeah.
You don't see the problems, but it's still beautiful, and I still love it so much.
Absolutely. And for you too, the house in a nutshell, because I think this is really expansive for people. When I first met Sidney, you had no idea how you were going to get a house on. You're like, I bought property.
Oh yeah.
Empty land with water. And you're like, I just love going there. My heart feels connected. And you didn't even know it was possible to get a loan. I remember at that time, you're like, I didn't even know I could do that. Can you talk about that process a little bit for people who are wanting their dream home and they see it to be so big and out of their grasp? You were a single woman you were just figuring out your career from having done tiny jobs, serving tiny jobs, getting to bigger jobs. Talk about that just a little bit in a nutshell.
Yeah. So I really, I felt like the entire time until basically now, when people would ask me, why Maine? And I would always say, I don't know. Just like,
it's
don't
like
ask
Scotland
me.
for me. It's the same.
Yeah. So I can hear your dog in the back.
I know. I hope she doesn't
so
start
cute.
harassing us.
Oh, so, I think that it's important to really just be clear that the path to your desire is always different and single, like it's just different for everyone. And I think that for me, for example, I was looking at buying a house and then it felt too overwhelming for me because I don't know how to restore. I didn't know how to make an old room look beautiful. And like these things that, I wasn't comfortable with. And so for me, building a house from scratch took me a longer time, which I actually liked doing one step after the next. It gave me time to build myself, my confidence, and my business. And so I felt like that was right for me. And every step of the way, I had no idea what I was doing. But I think that just finding the people that you want to work with is very important. My contractor was just like so amazing. He sent me pictures every day. He understood that, English was my second language. And like when he told me that he needed to do this and that, I had no idea what some of the words were because, I'm fluent. And obviously, I speak English more than I speak French now, but there's some terms I had no idea what it was. Like I remember even a few months ago, I, was looking for the doors and I couldn't find any doors I liked. So I did custom doors and then I had to cut down on some of them because of my budget. And then he was like, okay, what about the casing? And I was like, what the heck is a casing? I'm like, when is this going to end? You know?
The details.
Yeah, it's so hard. So yeah, that's what I did. I met, for me, it was one step at a time. Getting the land, then finding my architect, then designing the house, then he helped me find the contractor. We bid the house because it has passive principles. Mm-hmm. So it's very sustainable. And that was really hard to find somebody to build a house like that in Maine because they're more on the conservative side there. Mm-hmm. So finding a contractor, then getting an estimate, then finding a bank, like every step of the way was a lot of research, a lot of no sleep, and a lot of, just like asking people that had already done it or, going online, trying to understand. And also like basically praying, being like, okay, like, God, I need help on this one.
Oh, I know. Like I'm funny because I'm the opposite. Building to me seems so much more overwhelming than like walking in and being like, oh, put this door here instead of where it's at. So we're the opposite. I get like overwhelmed of being like, oh my God, building from scratch. I think now after going through the house, I could do it. But I sit here today in Topanga and like, nothing's getting rolled because we're in coastal commission. So everything's a gazillion times longer, of having to pass. And I sit here and I'm like, I don't even know if I have it in me again to go through.
I just can't believe you're doing that, like, because you just finished the forest retreat house.
I know. What am I thinking? It's like having kids where, it's like, can I really go through birth again?
I mean, you can, but it's just like props to you for going right into another project like that. It's so much work.
So much work, but so worth it in the end when it's finished. So like every time I'm at the retreat house, I'm like, I cannot believe that this exists. It's so wonderful.
Oh my gosh. When I'm on my couch and all the doors are like, I have double doors that look out to the water. And when they're open and the water's coming in because it's a tidal cove, I literally cry every time.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that incredible? That's amazing.
Yeah. And I literally can't put my phone down. I'm like taking pictures all day long.
So you guys can follow along on Instagram. Well, the really exciting thing for anybody who's French and has resonated with this conversation, we are going to be releasing in November the French version of How to Manifest, and also Spanish.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it'll exist out there in the world. We have so many new things that are coming out. But one thing I like to have people do in their native language is tell the listener, listening in this case, French. You didn't grow up speaking Hebrew as well, right?
My dad did.
Right. But didn't teach you guys.
Mm-hmm.
But in French, just telling the listener out there who's hearing you as an expander that they can do it. Anything they want is possible. Like your message, if you were talking to yourself at 13 in the Marais or before you moved to New York.
I have a friend that stayed at my house, and she wrote on a piece of paper a few years ago and put it on my kitchen counter, and she wrote, "Si tu crois, tu pourras," which means if you believe, you can.
Oh my gosh.
So I feel like that's all you need. Si tu crois, tu pourras. Tout est possible.
It's possible. Yes. And then what workshops are you doing now, Sidney? Or also what workshops are you doing now in the pathway, if you're doing any? And then what other supportive stuff have you been up to outside of it as well?
Okay, so I am doing the up level, and I feel like it's my second time doing it, actually. And I really like it, but I think I want to do the DRE next because things I feel like are slowing down. Maybe it's good for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just don't know what's next, So, I mean, I know what's next in my manifestation list, which are huge things.
Can you tell us? Are you willing to share?
Sure. I mean, yeah. So a baby.
Yes. I'm so excited.
Hopefully that happens.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait.
Yeah, that'll be really exciting. And, that on its own is like a whole other thing. My gosh. But that, and I would like to manifest enough jobs so that I can buy an apartment in Brooklyn.
Yes.
In Greenpoint. So those are the two main things that.
And you've already called in your apartment. What's on your list?
Oh, open floor plan.
Yes.
Outdoor area, lots of window light, fireplace.
Yes.
2-bedroom, and in a quiet street with trees.
Wonderful. Oh my, I can't wait. I'm going to be visiting it next year.
Oh my gosh, that would be so awesome. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so excited for you, Sidney. We're so grateful you took the time to go through your process. I mean, you're so expansive, and I've gotten to watch that. I really think you got into your stride about 2.5 years ago is when everything really started to click together. And it's been a real privilege and honor to watch that.
Oh, thank you so much, Lacy, for everything and for talking with me and sharing my story. I just feel very honored and grateful. And it's really awesome that you created this community where people can just rely on each other even when they don't know each other. It's pretty cool. I've been talking to this girl that's kind of becoming my friend because she was inspired by my house and wants to do the same thing. And
wow.
And it's it's really awesome that you're creating this platform for all these people. And I was thinking about it because I have a friend that's 19 and she does your work a lot. And I was like, wow, Lacy should do a workshop for teenagers.
I know. We keep thinking about it for parents, for kids and teens. Just because if kids already have this frame of mind at their age, I mean, anything's possible. And I would be so curious, they say millennials, they believe that they don't have to work and they can make things happen. Well, look how that worked out for me.
Yeah.
I'm glad I had that foundation. So I can only imagine with tech and these next generations. I mean, it takes me just having to heal and get my shit together because I'm so tired all the time. But I agree entirely. It's needed out there. 100%.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Have fun in Scotland.
I can't wait. I'm so excited. By this time this comes out, I'll have been there already, but I'm like, all I can see is tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. of getting on the flight.
You are leaving tomorrow?
Tomorrow, yes.
Oh my gosh. Well, safe travels and really enjoy.
Thank you so much and have a beautiful day. And I can't wait to see you when I'm back in New York in December.
Yay. Thank you. And good luck on your tour.
Thank you so much. Bye, Sidney.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into the episode, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, we did. And in case you're not totally ready to join the pathway yet, I wanted to share a few of our free offerings that I'll often suggest to people as a little bit of a blueprint to get them started on their manifestation journey. The first place I like to direct people completely for free is the motivation. You can see it linked below or on our homepage as our testimony library. And it's categorized by different subjects, whether you're calling in career, money, love, wellness, and much more. When you're reading about a member's experience of what they manifested, you're actually seeing to believe and showing your subconscious that that very thing is possible for you. The second place I like to direct people is to the free clarity exercise, which is also linked below. In it, you get to try our own unique hypnosis process, learn about the science, and some journaling prompts. And the best part about this, you'll get a tiny taste of what it's like to go into your hypnotic state, bring your subconscious forward, and create new neural pathways while receiving clarity. And the third thing, if you haven't listened to it on this podcast yet, please go back to the episode titled Manifestation 101, where you'll learn the basics of neural manifestation to truly understand this process. So go ahead and check out those free resources, the motivation, the free clarity exercise, and the episode Manifestation 101, all linked below. And in an effort to make sure to have representation in this process series, go ahead and submit any process testimonials you have, especially to our LGBTQ+ community, our BIPOC, as well as the Ys, which is anyone in the community who is 45 and over. All right, we'll be back next week.